This episode was made possible thanks to generous supporters on Patreon. Good day everyone and welcome to my YouTube series dedicated to your questions and my answers, which means that if you want your questions answered by me, write them down in the comments below, and also consider supporting me on Patreon up here and on the links down in the description. And now it's time for jingle. And now let's go to the first question. Hi Alexandra, in case there is still time for the next Asking Alexandra 3 episode, I would like to add another question. You moved to a different city which does not really have a vibrating rock metal scene, or I did not find it yet. Did you think on creating something like club gatherings, concerts in parks, pubs, etc., which would help local people to get knowledge about your work and maybe create a more rockish scene in the town? That's a very good question, and as a matter of fact, I had a little bit of different impression of Brno. Because I've been to some very nice rock and metal concerts here before I moved here. So my idea was that there is some vibrant metal scene, but later I figured out it's not exactly the case. And of course, I think that the metal scene is something that it depends on many factors, and of course awareness is one of the most important factors. So yeah, doing all kinds of gigs and events connected to rock and metal music is of course a good way to go. Unfortunately, I don't have a band here, and the other thing is that I've never been too much of a gigging artist, and I've been more oriented to studio work. And of course I planned to gather a band or join a band, but I still find my way in the city, so it doesn't happen so fast. But yes, indeed, I've thought about such things. And another one. I'm not sure if it was asked before or not. Do you have a pre-written exercise list for the week, similar to what bodybuilders do, but for the guitar? An example, you do only one exercise practices on Monday, focus on new pieces on Tuesday, etc. As a beginner, I am quite interested if such a list should exist and could be used to learn guitar, or it is mostly a flexible ad hoc work. This is a very good question, and since my schedule is quite diverse and there are many things that I need to stick somewhere, because besides doing my own music, I'm also session musician and I contribute to other people's records. And I also have my guitar students, and I also shoot videos, and I need to figure out how to integrate everything into my schedule in the most efficient way, especially since I play several instruments and I need to find time for every single one of them. And dividing the practice routine is something that definitely needs to be done in a very efficient way. I'm not sure that playing the instrument could be approached exactly the same way as bodybuilding, because it's a different type of work, but still there are some similarities that I do. And something that I do is that I change my exercises quite often, because I think that if you're stuck for the same practice routine for too long, it becomes inefficient. So that's why you need to develop new exercises and learn new songs all the time. And essentially, I change my exercise like once or twice a month, and I start something not completely new, but different enough so I keep myself challenged. What I for sure keep in every practice session is good stretching, warm up, and of course I've been saying that many times, 10 minutes of mindfulness meditation before practice, because it improves the focus significantly. And these are the things that stay the same in every practice routine, because this is just a preparation that you can't go without. And then I don't play the same thing for too long. For example, when I'm learning a song or I practice difficult part, it's not a good idea to play it for too long, because it causes unnecessary strain to the hands because of repeating the same thing over and over again, and it can cause injury. So it's always a good idea to keep your practice routine diverse. And if I play a different figure for 5-10 minutes or so, I switch to something that's completely different, so my hands can rest a little bit, and I go back to the same figure later, significantly later, exactly to avoid such repeating straining to the hands. So basically this is the similarities I could find with how bodybuilders and generally workouts, physical full body workouts function. Dear Alex, well, here's my question for you. I am curious as to what your favorite foods and drinks may be. Also, which do you prefer? Do you like to eat out or do your own cooking? My reason for asking is, I sometimes wonder about what the correlation between what we eat and its effect on the output in highly creative people. Has your dietary likes and dislike changed throughout your life? Thanks in advance. I'm sure that what you eat has huge impact on how you perform, how you compose, how your creativity process is going. And I'm guilty of doing a lot of stupid things in my life, and I've seen their effects very harshly on my ability to play, perform, compose, and stay focused, and everything all together. So right now I do my best to maintain nice, healthy diet, and also keep my physical shape in a good condition, because these things are very important. You can't just ignore things and rely on that they will just sort out themselves. I generally have a holistic approach to life and body and everything all together, and I'm sure that everything is tightly connected. And regarding my diet, I've been vegetarian for my whole life, and there were some rare occasions when I've been trying to eat some meat, but it just doesn't feel good to my body, so I just don't eat it. And I believe that everyone should listen carefully to their body needs, because I don't believe that there is one size fits all. There is not one diet that fits all, and generally you should be very, very observant and sensitive to your body, because it always knows what it needs and you need to provide it. It makes no sense to force yourself into something that's modern, or something that somebody told you because it worked for them. The chances are that it might not work for you at all. And I've been in such situations many times, because I had significant health problems in my life, and I needed to sort them out in some way. And I've been living in a place with a terrible healthcare, so I needed to count entirely on myself. So I needed to read a lot, I needed to experiment a lot, sometimes quite dangerously, and I don't recommend it, but these were the situations and I had no choice. So speaking for that, I prefer to cook my own food, because I'm sure what's in there, and I'm sure how it's prepared, and that there are not any poisonous things that are put in there. And of course, sometimes I eat out. I enjoy a small selections of food that I'm sure that they have low chance to be dangerous to me. And of course, there are situations which require you to eat out because there is no other opportunity. Regarding drinks, my favorite drink is water. And basically I drink very tiny selection of drinks. Of course, as I said, water is something that I drink all the time, and the other things are coffee and tea and occasionally beer, but this is just exclusion, because generally I don't like alcohol, I don't drink, but having a good beer, especially here in the Czech Republic, it's a pure joy to drink a good beer because of its quality, not because of the alcohol. And generally I don't like the effect of alcohol, so I have a very serious limit about where I stop with when I enjoy beer. So I have like 2 beers and that's it. Hi Alex, I hope you're getting better soon. Health comes first. Questions. Do you have guitarist acquisition syndrome as a master of guitar playing? What is your suggestion of plugin used for computer to make it sound like a tube amplifier without throwing tons of cash? Many thanks for your answers in advance. Rock and program. Thank you for your nice words and your great question. As a matter of fact, for a long time in my life I avoided using plugins at all cost, because they always sound weird to me, and I got the feeling, besides the artificial response that I'm getting from playing, it felt like my guitar is all the time out of tune, and this just drives me nuts. And it was happening with all kinds of plugins, all kinds of audio devices, all kinds of software. So it was some general thing. I just think that it's something to do with how harmonics are processed. Because basically, when we feel something going out of tune, it's to a great extent thanks to the harmonic content, because we correlate intervals subconsciously, because you know the tone is very complex signal and it has a lot of harmonics and intervals in there, and we just got used to this thing. And when it's slightly altered or not calculated properly, and it creates this weird feeling, and I just couldn't go without it for a very long time. But in the last few years, the technologies did a serious leap forward, and this is how I found Bias FX. And this was the first plugin that didn't annoy me, and this is why I started using it whenever I needed to use a plugin for session work, because usually people require dry signal along with your sound, because it gives them more freedom to operate. And for a very long time I used Bias FX, and it was so until this year, when I recorded the album Odd Times by Alberto Rigoni, also with Marco Mineman on drums, and it was instrumental prog, and it just got released. I'll post links in the description. And I decided to try Neural DSP because it seemed to be a very good thing, and everybody kept recommending it to me. And I saw a lot of demos by Tulsi Nabasi and Plini, and I admire these people very much. And they have their own plugins designed according to their personal sound, and since I like them both, I decided to check these plugins and figure out which one would work good for me. And I went for Plini plugin, and this is what I bought and used for this album. And I think that so far this is the best plugin I've played with. It has great realistic response. The dynamics and the harmonic content is spectacular, and I could really recommend these two. Neural DSP, any of the plugins that you can get, and my second best would be Bias FX. Hi Alex. You have been banished to another planet, and you're told that you're only allowed to bring one book and one instrument. What do you bring? This is a very, very hard choice. Well, for instrument, I will most likely take guitar with me, because this has always been my first love. And yeah, it will be the guitar. Regarding the book, I will cheat and I will bring my reader, but in order to have an honest answer, it will be extremely difficult to me to narrow my choice down to one book, because I really want to read many books, and life is way too short for that, and that's the reason why I almost never read a book twice. The first two books that come to mind right now that I've been reading more than once are Just So Stories by Rudyard Kipling, and this was probably my favorite book in childhood, and I've been reading it many times. And not so long ago I read it again, and I still think it's fascinating. And the other book that comes to mind is Chrysalids by John Wyndham, which I've read like 4 times, I think. So I'm not sure which one of the two I would take, but probably Rudyard Kipling, because it's somehow cheering up. The Chrysalids is a little bit depressive book, and since it's a dystopia, and I love dystopias in general, but it's not exactly the best thing to read when you're alone somewhere on another planet or isolated island or in any other environment like that. So probably I will take Rudyard Kipling. Hi Alexandra, will you please tell me about the inspiration for your An Evening Walk EP and why it consists of only 2 songs? Thank you very much. Well, An Evening Walk has a very interesting story, and there's certain metaphysics about that. First of all, the track An Evening Walk is something I recorded back in 2005, I think. And it was a piece that I composed when I was 16 years old. And it was a tuning that I invented because I heard this melody in my head and I just wanted to recreate it on the guitar, but there were several voices. I had the chord progression, I had the melody, I had the bass line, and I had some idea what needs to happen in between, and the normal tuning just, it was impossible to play on standard tuning. So I just started tuning the strings one by one until it serves some comfortable fingering so I can play this. And finally I ended up with this weird tuning which I called the E major 7 tuning, and it's E, G sharp, D sharp, G sharp, B, D sharp from 6th to 1st. And back then I didn't have tuner, and when I went to record this song, I just tuned the guitar the way I felt it. I didn't use a tuner. And later I started doing researches on tunings and standards for A, and I found very, very interesting things about that, and some of them are very, very hard to prove, because nowadays there are many people who radically deny everything that couldn't be written into spreadsheets. And I believe that we are still not advanced enough to be able to fill certain things into a spreadsheet. Not that it's not possible, but we need to learn more. Because I don't believe that science, spirituality and mysticism should be separated. And they have something in common, and we are very close to find these things. I don't want to get too much into detail because this video will be 7 hours long probably. The reason is that I found this piece Ut quant laxis, which is something that's attributed to Guido d'Arezzo, and this is where the origin of the note names. I will post a link on Wikipedia so everyone who's interested, they can read a little bit more about this piece. But what's important is that the melody that Guido used and applied certain text which was written in 10th century, I think. He applied it to this melody, and this is how we get this Ut quant laxis piece. And it's said that this piece have healing properties. I've been listening to it a lot It's a Gregorian chant, and there are many different performances you can find on YouTube, and you can see that some of them have a very strong impact on how you perceive it, and it feels very soothing. And this is how I figure out that this soothing element can be found in many other pieces, not just this one. And the common thing happened to be the standard for the note A, and it's not 440. Then I figured out that this recording that I did in 2005, it was in this tuning. And this got me curious, and I started researching, and I was wondering where this melody Ut queant laxis comes from, and it could be traced back to Horace, and he says that he just knows it from somewhere, which means that this melody is more than 2000 years long and nobody knows where it came from, but it has some magic in it. And when I say magic, I have in mind something that we still don't understand enough in detail. This is why I decided to put these two pieces together, because they have common properties. Regarding the piece, An Evening Walk, what I had in mind when I composed this was to describe a very soothing vision that I had in my teenage years, particularly between 13 and 16, I think. And it was me walking on a beach, a very quiet and very clean, lonely, long beach during sunset, and I was walking together slowly with somebody, but I don't know who's that somebody. But it's like this protective presence that, for example, a good father or good grandfather would have to a child. It was really very soothing thing, and I really needed this in my life back then, because these were very hard times. And I just wanted to write a song about that, and this is An Evening Walk. So it's an evening walk on the beach with some entity which calms me down and protects me. And this is yet another reason why I combined it with Ut queant laxis, because they both have somehow similar effect on me. And well, I think this pretty much answers the question. So that's everything for this episode. I hope you guys liked this, and if you want to have your questions answered, write them down in the comments below, and also subscribe to my channel and click the bell button so you don't miss anything from me. See you next time, stay safe and prog on.